Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Talk English freely.
Hey Brian, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing okay, thanks. Actually, I woke up feeling a bit anxious this morning, but after my coffee and a short walk, I feel much better now. How about you?
I'm feeling pretty good today. I had a really nice conversation with an old friend yesterday, and it put me in such a positive mood. It's amazing how talking to someone you care about can really lift your spirits.
That's wonderful. It really is interesting how our emotions can shift so much throughout the day, isn't it?
Absolutely. One moment you can feel stressed or worried, and then something small happens, and suddenly you feel lighter.
Right. I've been thinking a lot about that lately. How we experience emotions and how they affect our daily lives.
Me too. I think emotions are such a fundamental part of being human, but we don't always talk about them openly or understand them very well.
I agree. And different people express emotions in such different ways.
Exactly. Some people wear their hearts on their sleeves and others keep everything inside.
That's true.
So, Brian, can I ask you something?
Of course. What's on your mind?
How do you usually express your emotions when you're feeling something strongly?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the emotion and the situation. When I am feeling happy or excited, I tend to be more expressive and open about it. I'll smile more, laugh more, and share my feelings with people around me. But when I am feeling sad or angry, I tend to become quieter and withdraw a bit.
I can relate to that. It's easier to share positive emotions than negative ones, isn't it? When I'm happy, I want to tell everyone, but when I'm upset or frustrated, I often keep it to myself until I've had time to process it.
Yes, exactly. There's something about negative emotions that makes us want to hide them or deal with them privately.
I think part of it is not wanting to burden other people with our problems.
That's very true.
What about you, Brian? Do you find it easy or difficult to talk about your feelings?
Honestly, it depends on who I am talking to. With close friends and family, I feel comfortable opening up and sharing how I am feeling, but with people I don't know well, I tend to keep my emotions more guarded. I think that's pretty common, though.
I think so too. It takes trust to be vulnerable with someone and share your true feelings. I'm the same way, where I need to feel safe with someone before I can really open up about what's going on inside.
Right. Vulnerability requires trust.
Definitely. Okay, here's another question. What emotion do you experience most often in your daily life?
That's an interesting question. I think the emotion I feel most often is probably contentment or mild happiness. Most days, I feel relatively stable and okay, not extremely happy or sad, just kind of peacefully going through my routine. But there are definitely days when I feel more anxious or stressed, especially when I have a lot of work or responsibilities.
I think that's pretty normal. Most of life isn't extremely emotional, it's just kind of steady and calm. But then there are those moments or days when you feel something more intense, like real joy or deep sadness or frustration.
Exactly, life would be exhausting if every day was emotionally intense.
That's true. I think I also feel contentment most of the time, just going about my day feeling relatively peaceful. But I do notice that I feel anxious more often than I'd like, especially when I'm worried about something or when I have too many things on my plate.
Anxiety is such a common emotion these days. I think a lot of people struggle with it.
Yeah, I think modern life creates a lot of anxiety with all the pressure and uncertainty.
Absolutely.
All right, here's a different kind of question. Do you think it's healthy to express all your emotions? Or are there times when it's better to keep them to yourself?
That's a really thoughtful question. I think there's a balance to be found. On one hand, suppressing your emotions all the time isn't healthy, because those feelings don't just disappear, they build up inside you. But on the other hand, I don't think it's always appropriate or helpful to express every single emotion you feel in the moment. Sometimes you need to pause and think before reacting emotionally.
I completely agree with that. There have been times when I've felt really angry or frustrated, and if I had expressed exactly what I was feeling in that moment, I probably would have said something I'd regret later. Taking time to cool down and process the emotion before expressing it can be really important.
Right. It's about finding the right time and the right way to express how you're feeling.
Exactly. And also considering who you're talking to and whether expressing your emotion will be helpful or just make things worse.
That's very mature thinking.
Thanks. What about you, Brian? Have you ever regretted expressing an emotion too quickly?
Yes, definitely. There have been times when I've snapped at someone because I was feeling stressed or irritable, and then I felt terrible about it afterward. In those moments, I wish I had taken a breath and composed myself before speaking. It's something I am working on. Being more mindful of my emotional state before I react.
That's really self-aware of you. I think we all have moments like that where we react emotionally and then wish we'd handled it differently. The important thing is recognizing it and trying to do better next time.
Exactly. Growth comes from reflection.
It really does. Okay, here's another one. How do you handle sadness when it comes up?
Sadness is a tough one for me. When I feel sad, I tend to want to be alone and just sit with the feeling for a while. I might listen to music, take a long walk, or just spend time quietly thinking. I find that trying to push sadness away or ignore it doesn't work, so I try to acknowledge it and give myself permission to feel it.
I think that's a really healthy approach. Allowing yourself to feel sad instead of pretending everything is fine can be really important for processing the emotions. I do something similar where I give myself space to feel sad, maybe have a good cry if I need to, and then gradually I start to feel a bit better.
Crying can be really cathartic. It's like an emotional release.
It really is. I used to think crying was a sign of weakness, but now I see it as just a natural response to sadness or overwhelm.
I feel the same way. There's nothing weak about having emotions.
Absolutely. What about anger? How do you deal with that emotion?
Anger is probably the emotion I struggle with the most. When I feel angry, my first instinct is to either lash out or shut down completely. Neither of those responses is particularly healthy or productive. I'm trying to learn better ways to manage anger, like taking deep breaths, stepping away from the situation, or talking about what's bothering me calmly instead of letting it explode.
Those are all great strategies. Anger is such a powerful emotion that it can be really hard to control in the moment. I tend to get angry when I feel like I've been treated unfairly or when I'm frustrated with a situation I can't control. And like you said, my instinct is either to say something harsh or to just bottle it up, neither of which is helpful.
Right. Anger needs to be expressed, but in a constructive way.
Exactly. I've been trying to practice expressing my anger more calmly by saying things like, I'm feeling really frustrated right now because, instead of just yelling or shutting down.
That's a great approach. Using I feel statements instead of blaming language.
Yeah, it helps keep the conversation productive instead of turning into a fight.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a more positive question. What makes you feel genuinely happy?
Oh, I love this question. There are quite a few things that make me genuinely happy. Spending time with people I love, having meaningful conversations, being in nature, accomplishing something I have been working hard on, and just those simple moments like enjoying a good meal or watching a beautiful sunset. Happiness for me often comes from those small, everyday moments rather than big events.
I love that perspective. I think happiness is often found in the little things rather than waiting for some big milestone or achievement. For me, I feel happiest when I'm connected with people I care about, when I'm doing something creative, or when I'm outside enjoying the fresh air and sunshine. Those simple pleasures bring me so much joy.
Those are all wonderful things. Connection and creativity are so important for happiness.
They really are. Do you think some people are naturally happier than others, or do you think happiness is something you can cultivate?
I think it's probably a bit of both. Some people do seem to have a naturally more optimistic or positive disposition, while others might be more inclined toward anxiety or sadness. But I also believe that happiness is something you can cultivate through your habits, mindset, and the way you choose to respond to life's challenges. Things like practicing gratitude, maintaining relationships, taking care of your physical health, and doing activities you enjoy can all contribute to greater happiness.
I completely agree with that. I think we all have a baseline emotional state that we tend to return to, but we can influence that baseline by making choices that support our well-being. Like you said, gratitude practices, staying connected with others, and taking care of ourselves can make a real difference in how we feel overall.
Right. It's about intentionality.
Exactly. All right, here's another one. Do you think it's important to hide your emotions in certain situations, like at work or in professional settings?
That's a complex question. I think there are situations where it's appropriate to manage your emotions more carefully, especially in professional environments. You don't want to break down crying in the middle of a meeting or get visibly angry at a colleague. But I don't think you should completely hide your emotions either, because that can come across as cold or disconnected. I think it's about finding a balance where you're authentic, but also professional.
I think that's a really nuanced answer. There's definitely a time and place for emotional expression, and the workplace often requires a bit more restraint than personal relationships. But like you said, being completely emotionless isn't healthy or authentic either. I think showing some emotion, like enthusiasm for a project or empathy for a colleague, can actually strengthen professional relationships.
Absolutely, emotional intelligence is so important in the workplace.
It really is. Being able to read other people's emotions and respond appropriately is such a valuable skill.
Definitely.
What about you, Brian? Have you ever felt like you had to hide your emotions at work or in a professional setting?
Yes, there have been times when I was feeling really stressed or overwhelmed. But I felt like I had to put on a brave face and act like everything was fine. I think there's a lot of pressure, especially in work environments, to always appear confident and in control. But sometimes that can be exhausting because you're not being true to how you actually feel.
I've definitely experienced that too. There have been days when I've been going through something difficult in my personal life, but I still had to show up to work and act professional and put together. It can be really draining to maintain that facade when you're struggling inside.
It really can be. I think it's important to find people you trust, whether that's a friend, family member, or therapist, where you can be completely honest about how you're feeling.
Absolutely. Everyone needs a safe space where they can express their emotions without judgment.
Exactly.
Okay, last question. What advice would you give to someone who has trouble understanding or expressing their emotions?
I would say start by paying more attention to how you're feeling throughout the day. A lot of people go through life on autopilot without really checking in with their emotional state. You could try keeping a journal where you write about your feelings, or simply pause a few times a day and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? It might feel awkward at first, but it gets easier with practice.
That's really good advice. I would add that it can be helpful to expand your emotional vocabulary. Instead of just saying, I feel bad or I feel good, try to get more specific, like I feel anxious or I feel grateful or I feel frustrated. The more words you have for your emotions, the easier it becomes to understand and express them.
That's an excellent point. Precision in language helps with emotional clarity.
Exactly. And I would also say don't be afraid to reach out for support, whether that's talking to a trusted friend or working with a therapist. Understanding and expressing emotions is a skill that can be learned and developed over time.
Absolutely, it's a journey, not a destination.
Well, Brian, I think we've explored emotions and feelings pretty thoroughly today.
We really have. This has been such a meaningful conversation.
I agree. I hope everyone listening found it helpful and maybe reflected a bit on their own emotions.
Me too.
Thanks so much for being here with us today, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation about emotions and feelings.
These are such important topics that affect all of us every single day. We'd love to hear from you. What emotions do you experience most often? How do you express your feelings?
Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love reading what you have to say.
And if this conversation helped you practice your English, please give us a like.
It really means a lot to us.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can join us for more conversations like this.
Thanks again for spending time with us today.
Take care of yourselves and your emotions.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.